Mace Windu and the Glass Abyss is the first Mace Windu focused book that I've read since Shatterpoint. Shatterpoint came out way back in 2003, so it's been quite a long time since I went on a journey with Mace Windu, and it is also now considered Legends. It was a really cool book. It gave a deeper understanding on who Mace Windu was, but also it was the first Clone Wars novel in the larger Clone Wars multimedia project. The titular ability of that book, Shatterpoint, has been made canon in the novel Brotherhood, which I'm also currently reading, so stay tuned for a recap and review on that one as well. And then, of course, the Clone Wars series. The Glass Abyss takes place between episodes 1 and 2, though it's much closer to the episodes of The Phantom Menace, as Qui-Gon's death hovers over everything Mace Windu goes through on his journey. The Jedi Order as a whole is mourning the loss of this great Jedi Master. He didn't fall in line with a lot of what the Order was doing at the time, but he was never contentious or at odds with his peers. There's also the matter of the Sith returning to the galaxy after centuries of them having been thought extinct. Windu, a powerful Jedi Master and a man who has to balance that with being one of the fiercest warriors in the galaxy, is having a hard time keeping balance within himself. The Jedi are not supposed to form attachments, but they do care about one another. Qui-Gon, a good, loyal, and long-term friend of Windu's, leaves a hole in his life. Windu receives a recorded holomessage from Qui-Gon, a message that was scheduled to be delivered in the event of Qui-Gon's untimely death. This message is a request. Qui-Gon asks Windu to go to the outer rim planet of Metagos that is having its own internal struggle. A struggle Qui-Gon was sympathetic to and promised to help the downtrodden from this dominant bully fancying himself a warlord. A little bit of stage setting on Metagos itself. It was affected by a solar flare years prior to the events of this novel. The flare completely transformed the planet into a dangerous, irradiated wasteland made of smooth glass. This is the equivalent of dropping nuclear missiles all over the planet. It's what they would do to the landscape and obviously add to the radiation. On Earth, we call it Trinitite. It's this gray-green fused glass-like substance that was found after the Trinity test in 1945. Because of the uninhabitable surface conditions on the planet, the populace was forced underground if they wanted to scrape out a meager living. I'm unsure how drastic the caste system was prior to this event, but when Qui-Gon and then later Mace Windu find it, the Sa'ad were the poor working class who are the victims of different gangs vying for control of the planet and the few remaining resources. The Sa'ad practice a unique skill called dreamweaving. This is a force-based power. They call it the web. This power allows their consciousness to remain active during sleep so they can commune with all the creatures native to the planet. Windu keeps his distance from the Sa'ad for a while. He doesn't let it be known to anyone on world that he's a Jedi Knight. This is also not a sanctioned mission on behalf of the Galactic Republic. He's not defying any orders. There's no reason why he can't be there. He just doesn't have the backup of the Order or his government. To get a foothold on the planet and get a better understanding of what's going on, Windu adopts a false identity and acts as a freelancer looking for work within the criminal factions that are running and further ruining the world. This new identity and desire to infiltrate the underworld of Metagos means Windu has to do things the Jedi Code wouldn't strictly be in support of, and I guess that's putting it lightly at times. He understands it's a small personal sacrifice to save the lives of many, a noble sacrifice. You just have to be careful because a means to an end can be a very slippery slope. The violence he has to commit could be argued as a necessary evil. The issue isn't even that he's good at it. It's that a part of him, and not even a small part, kinda likes it. I was really getting hooked here. Mace Windu is cool. That's the best word for it. He's a cool guy. He's cool because he was originally portrayed by Samuel L. Jackson, who is cool. He gets to look big and intimidating. He gets some awesome lines. He was the first on-screen Jedi to have a lightsaber other than green or blue. He is a badass Jedi warrior. The small issue I always had with him since Attack of the Clones was that his attitude, his near anti-hero demeanor, wasn't very Jedi-like, especially for that of a Jedi Master.
This party's over.
It's a cool line, for sure. It doesn't really say Jedi Knight to me. Glass Abyss addresses this concern of mine and then some. His actual mission on the planet is interesting enough. He helps the conflict along and the villain is a unique and reasonably interesting one. But the real thrust of the novel is Mace Windu's personal journey. Much of this journey is addressed through dreams. For someone powerful in the Force, especially on a planet where the Force is so strongly present that all life is interconnected through it and many of the life forms can tap into it, dreams are not just dreams. There's no indication that Metagos was or contains a Force nexus, it just seems like a lot of people are a lot more in tune with it. The dreams that plague our hero are intense and unsettle the powerful Jedi. They are clearly symbolic about the internal conflict he's currently going through, as well as many unresolved issues from his past. His past reveals the event that put him on the path to being a Jedi in the first place. The planet's current state, being that of glass, worms its way into his psyche. In his sleeping moments, he finds himself lost in an endless sea of glass shards. His reflection in these shards are countless distorted versions of himself glaring back at him. This metaphor challenges Windu and his perception of who he is. It asks the large and difficult questions of how does one reconcile being a warrior and a peacekeeper, something the entire Jedi Order is going to have to come to terms with soon enough. Windu doesn't know it just yet, but every system he puts stock into is dancing on a razor's edge. The dreams progress to where the glass he's walking on literally cracks and gives way beneath him. As he falls into nothingness, he's surrounded by familiar screams, people in his life who, in this nightmare, he has failed to save. The voices accuse him of being detached and conceited, the detachment coming from parts of the Jedi Code. Conceited, I would think, is his own insecurity, something of maybe an imposter system like, who am I to be able to tell other people how to live, or who am I to enforce the rules of the Force? All of this fear is the dark side pulling at him. A big part of all this internal struggle is the late Qui-Gon Jinn. I really liked how present Qui-Gon Jinn was without him actually being present. I think we can all agree that Qui-Gon is everything we want to see in a Jedi Master. The dream version of Qui-Gon is a little bit different, though the spirit of his beliefs are largely the same. He questions the strict doctrine of the Jedi Code, urging Windu to take a step back from it in favor of following the living Force. Windu always respected Qui-Gon's outlook and took a lot of time to contemplate this request. He would wonder if the code itself was stifling his instincts. The amount of introspective and self-reflection we get to experience with a character as strong as Mace Windu absolutely sold this book to me. As he's processing everything his sleeping mind is bringing up, he's also learning the ways of the Saad. This culture is more primitive by galactic standards, but the way they connect to the web, Windu even mentions directly that this is in fact the Force, allows him to face his complicated past, a past that saw him orphaned and taken in by the Jedi. Initially, he wonders if he is a Jedi simply because it was the only path, and maybe life should have gone another way. The ritualistic connection to the web shows him that the journey he's been on wasn't incidental, but worked because of his character and who he really is and who the Force deemed it was meant to be. Yes, he has to balance being a warrior and a peacekeeper, but the pursuit of balance is the role of a Jedi in all things. You could argue that that's the point of the entire franchise. As his war with the primary antagonist of the novel comes to a head, Windu softens on some of his strict adherence to the Jedi Code. He starts to listen to Qui-Gon. He never abandons his previous way of thinking entirely, but he has some nuance in the way he approaches things. He realizes the Jedi Code is a guide, and that in thinking in absolutes is not the Jedi way. And we all know this thanks to Obi-Wan.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes.
Along with following the code, he must follow the Force. In that, he needs to trust his intuition, have compassion, and adapt to the situation he's in. The glass wasteland of his dreams transform into a beautiful spread of luminous crystals. The word luminous here is being used very intentionally. He comes through this string of nightmares and dreams having reconciled his past, let go of many burdens, and having a more open-minded outlook on the galaxy, philosophy, the Jedi Order, their code, and all aspects of the Force. Using these dreams as a vehicle for the plot of the story, but also an incredible study of the man who is Mace Windu, was excellent. I actually did enjoy this more than the direct story. Windu infiltrating this new layer of the criminal underworld in Star Wars, being able to stretch his legs as a warrior, do battle in a starship against impossible odds, and come through a bigger person let me reconcile that little bug that's always been biting at the back of my mind, with him being a great Jedi Master, but feeling too forceful at times. It's all cohesive for me now. To take some of the mental journey Windu went on and bring it into the physical realm, the book talks about Windu's chosen fighting style. Ever since Legends, Windu has been a practitioner primarily of the 7th form of lightsaber combat, though I would have to assume he's proficient in all of them. The 7th form is called Vaapad. This form is risky for less skilled Jedi. It harnesses aggression and the opponent's dark side emotions, without the user succumbing to those emotions. It's controversial to some, as it does dip a toe into the dark. The trick is to not let that part take over. This further irons out the issue I initially had with the character, as Vaapad is not just a fighting technique, but a meditation practice and way of being. It's practiced only by those with a confident mastery of the Force, as they are, and I'm sorry for using this analogy again, walking the razor's edge between the light and dark side without falling. Without spoiling the ending, there's a really cool moment where Windu is without his lightsaber against a much more physically imposing opponent. Because of his mastery of Vaapad, he is a great warrior, not just great with a lightsaber. I do want to talk about the villain. Far too often it's easy to just make an anti-Jedi as the villain, where there's some other dark Force user or fallen Jedi or some way to counter the Force. This didn't really have to address any of that. They just created a new kind of character. Chulak was Windu's primary adversary. He was actually they. It was two sentient beings that melded as one. Chu was a Farakai, an anthropoid species that had the bonding ability to do the body and mind meld. Locke was a Rodian. The two beings met each other at one point and melded together, so their brains, vocal cords, limbs, everything worked in sync. I don't really know why Chu chose a Rodian who didn't hold any kind of power in the galaxy to bond with, but the two became decently powerful together. They were cunning as well as physical threat to Windu, even with his Jedi abilities. He was also a great representation of one of Star Wars' main themes. He was the big fish in a small pond. He controlled the resources of the wounded planet of Metagos and kept the poorer people under his heel. It only took a single individual who was up to the challenge to stop the bullying. The author of this book, Stephen Barnes, has a long history in sci-fi and fantasy genres, where he's known for writing stories that explore identity, morality, and character growth. His name was unfamiliar to me as an author, but now I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye out for more of his work in the Star Wars universe. I love the way he made Mace Windu a much more three-dimensional character and explained some of his non-Jedi attributes, at least as I saw them. This was a way that didn't retcon, ignore, or change anything in the character's established past. He also wrote The Cestus Deception. That book explores ethical and emotional struggles that Obi-Wan and his clone troopers had during the Clone Wars. It did come out in 2004, so it is considered Legends, but Obi-Wan is my absolute favorite Jedi in the franchise, so this is a book that I want to get into Obi-Wan's head, as I just did for Mace Windu. In this video, I have spent a lot more time on Windu's personal journey rather than the surface level story of the book, his individual mission, and that was on purpose. If it was just that surface level action adventure, I'd say you can go ahead and skip this one, but the book is worth reading as a character piece. Mace Windu, The Glass Abyss is available now. I chose to do the audiobook, which had a solid performance from William Dermott. It also had some good sound design and scoring to really make it feel Star Wars. If you like the character Mace Windu, I'd say this is a must read, or in my case, listen. If you don't really care about him, and I can't imagine why you wouldn't, this is probably one you can skip. It doesn't really change the larger Star Wars narrative, but I mean, honestly, who doesn't like Mace Windu? Check out this transmission next for more Star Wars book reviews and recommendations.